In 2026, I want to focus for many months in a row on personality defenses. And for me, they revolve around the concept of reason, will, and emotion, which is centralized in Patrick Lecture 43. To start it, I thought I'd go back a few lectures and look at Patrick Lecture 30, which is self-will, pride, and fear, which you'll hear me refer to as pride, self-will, and fear, to follow the same RWE, reason, will, and emotion, that the rest of the lectures on this topic are phrased as. So, pride, self-will, and fear. So these, in week one, the discussion is how these are hindrances to perfection. Now, there are buried assumptions in such a statement. One is that there is perfection. Now, the human concept of that is where and when will I get there? Spirit is more nuanced than that. It's got more dimensions, a deeper reality. So I use the concept of time explained in the path work, specifically in Patrick Lecture 112. The concept of time as an earth convenience that doesn't exist in spirit because it's a concept. The concept exists. However, in spirit, past, present, and future coexist at the same time. And I use that as a tool, as a lever, to help me understand that intent is the beginning of the process. There's an awareness and a will that I can focus into an intent. The intent on the earth plane will take a while to go through the chores. And then there will be a resolution and achievement of whatever that intent was formed around. In spirit, the intent means I'm already there. It's only a matter of experiencing it, of embodying it, of knowing I have it, and knowing I can not only achieve it, but retain it. It's a little bit like saying that if you have a skill and you're practiced at it, then if you need it, it comes easily to you, rather than having to think about it and relearn it. Now, there are skills that when they come up, I don't remember how to do the extra chore, and I have to take my attention away from the topic, go stumble through the details till I get that done, and then come back to what I was trying to do. There are other skills that if I need something, I click on it or I do something and it's done and I continue on. All of our earth development incarnations, lifetimes, lessons, etc., are like learning all these multitude of skills that allow us to focus more intently on a larger goal, the larger goal of purification and transformation. Now, so perfection already exists, but we want to experience it. There's pleasure in experiencing it. So that when no matter how brutally or misinformed we are about wanting perfection, that started from a place of believing it was possible. And the belief that it is possible is fueled by the memory that it already is. So we're here trying to replicate or duplicate something that already exists, and we're not going to get there on this earth plane. Now, here's the metaphor that I came up with this afternoon, which is very sad. Laugh, forgive me, whatever. Somebody was talking about why is this so difficult? And I tried to come up with an image, and what came to me is avocados. Avocados have a very large central core. They have a thin or thick fleshy exterior and a thick skin. It's like we're all avocados. And there's a central core, but there's the fleshy bit, which can get bruised and can taste good or bad or not be ripe. And then there's the rough exterior, which can be extra thick or extremely thin and sensitive. And we're all bouncing around together. And there's that inner knowing. This is so silly. There's an inner knowing that we are an avocado. But there's also a need to accept and I need to take care of my skin and the flesh, and I need to understand that everybody else has the same, but they are in different stages of development. They're different varietals, etc. It was a silly analogy, and it worked for the person that I was speaking to. So spiritual perfection is I manifest it as this to get something done. And next time I manifest in another dimension, another planet, or on the earth, but my next spiritual lesson, even if it's simply a heavenly lesson, I will manifest slightly differently because I'll have a different task. But here, my task was decided before I came in. And my deciding my task, having the intention, means it's inevitability. I will get there. I love the word inevitability in spiritual work. So the way this process works, and I know this sounds far afield from pride, self-will, and fear, but we're going to get there. The way it works is spirit has an intention, and so it formulates a soul. It's like it condenses part of itself into a soul. That soul then condenses what it needs into a personality. And then it's like Marushka dolls. Then that becomes, it eventually manifests a physical form and a life and etc. Complicated, trying to move through that. So that there are various levels of hardening, there's various levels of somatization. Once we pick a personality, you can't simply pick a new personality. I know it can look like that sometimes, but that's just because we didn't understand the variations that were possible inside an individual, how we can change and adapt. But once you're born a certain race, gender, size, shape with certain genes, you're not going to have a radically different set of genes. And you're not going to manifest or change who you are once you're an adult into something else simply because of your spiritual belief system. So we've hardened things, and we harden things for a reason. It allows us to manifest our false beliefs, misconceptions, and distortions so that we can experience their untruths. And the untruth of these is always in the pain and suffering that they cause. Now, there are times when it's pain and suffering that other people experience, and we feel immune to it until perhaps later in life. Other times we can absorb it all so that we feel like we're doing all the suffering. That sounds good, except it's self-flagellation, and that can sometimes develop such scar tissue and emotional turmoil that we don't really do the work. But either way, a false belief, misconception, or distortion is going to create pain and suffering. And what we need to do is experience that and connect the dots and realize what's going on so that we can consciously release it, renounce it, recant it. So that's the system. Now, where does pride, self-will, and fear come in? They are impossible to completely separate. They are created by our spiritual will, our free will. And they are used. And when they are used by will. So they don't exist independently. So rather than get further into that, I'm going to suggest you just read the lecture because it goes on about the different aspects. What I'm trying to what I'm trying to reiterate is that they're not separate. We're not a type of personality. We don't only have self-will without some pride and fear. We don't have pride and or fear without self-will involved. The trick is to feel it. Now, somebody today came up with a great example of a moment in time when they felt their primal reflexes take over. And it was such a startling change from their normal feelings and behavior that it was noticeable. This is a powerful moment because normally these are hidden. They're so connected with a connective tissue to all our interactions that we don't realize when we are behaving in a survival mode. It's cloaked, it's disguised, it's described, it's understood, it's modified by, when the central issue may be survival. So, for instance, in terms of social acceptance, we harken back to tribal days of the outsiders get killed, the insiders get protected. And anything that makes us feel that tends to trigger survival instinct. We need to join the tribe or find a tribe to join. We need to find a place where we feel protected, or at least where we don't feel threatened. Now, one of the stories that really sang to my heart that I read was a short story by Isaac Asimov, and it was called Nightime. And it was about a planet, science fiction writer. It was about a planet where there were 3 suns, and the moons would only cause a total eclipse of all 3 suns every couple thousand years. And so because of 3 suns, it was never dark. And then what rolled around was it was going to be eclipse time, and the planet was going to experience darkness for the first time in everybody's lifetime. They never dealt with it. They didn't have a society that compensated for darkness. There was never a moment when a sun did not shine. And so I remember the description being that the stairwells weren't lit because it was always sunlight. Why would you have electrical lights when there's always sunlight? So they weren't prepared for the once in a millennium event of a total eclipse of all 3 suns. And when the eclipse began, the population lost it. They went into that same fear-based freeze, flight, fight that animals go into during normal eclipses on the planet today. And if you've ever witnessed an eclipse, there's a part of me that I could feel myself becoming that animal and wondering whether I should stand still or run away or hide. It's a primal response. And this fear is baked into us, into some of our reflexes. The trick is here that self-will will align with that because it serves its will. Or it will try to counter that and convince it with reason that it's not necessary. This is a dance that these 3 play. I prefer to name the main player as self-will because the driver of this entire engine is the free will to elect to transform. And so self-will is a manifestation of that. Hopefully that gives you some things to chew on, some ideas to roll with, some different ways of understanding the concepts. I have fun creating examples. I like in the pathwork where the guide creates examples, helps me understand. So Pathwork Lecture 30, Pride, Self-Will, and Fear, Week 1, that these 3 hinder perfection. Thanks for listening.